If you remember Dungeon Keeper, then this is probably going to look pretty familiar to you. Hey people, Voice talking to you, and today we're checking out Cthulhu Keeper, a new base building and stealth strategy game where we build a cult to the Elder Gods. If you'd like to check this game out for yourself or see my full playthrough stream, there are links to both down in the description. The story of this game was a little sparse in the playtest, but it seems to be tailored to which character we're playing as. There was only one cult leader available to us though, so I can only really tell you about Lilith. Lilith is a psychotic doctor who witnessed someone close to her driven to madness and death by eldritch knowledge. Determined to discover the root of this insanity, she did what any sane person would do and devoted herself to Papa Cthulhu.
Glimpses of the twisted experiments emerge in the darkness. Her eyes, black mirrors of an abyssal soul.
Both the cinematics and the voice acting in this game were surprisingly top-notch. No cheesy AI or lifeless slideshows to be seen. The fact is that the style of this game as a whole was really fantastic. The UI is slick, the monsters are nasty, and everything is done up in an awesome cel-shaded, hand-drawn style. As a big fan of Lovecraft, they definitely paid attention to the source material. Alright, enough gushing about the art, let's get into the gameplay. This game is divided up into two phases, the dungeon and expeditions. The dungeon is where all of our base building takes place, and this seems to include a location unique to your chosen cult leader. For Lilith, that means we're excavating a lair beneath her clinic. This portion of the game feels pretty identical to Dungeon Keeper and a lot of other titles with a similar premise. We spend gold for our little ghouls to excavate tiles and expand our lair, and some tiles will have gold or other resources inside them that we can collect while we mine. We can use the newly acquired space to build useful structures such as occult libraries, cultist altars, and even monster habitats. Considering we're building a secret villain lair underneath what I assume is a major city, it should come as no surprise that the Homeowners Association will eventually come knocking. Well, them, monster hunters, city police, and random couples who think exploring a haunted clinic is a swell idea for a date. The more we dig, the more threat we generate, and the more threat we have, the more likely it is for a squad of armed goons to show up. Defending your dungeon, yes, the game does call it a dungeon, is a pretty simple but kind of awkward affair. We can, of course, construct defenses like crossbow traps and spike pits to deter visitors, but we can also drag and drop our cultists, cult leader, or monsters into strategic positions in your stronghold, or just plop them right on top of the intruders. For the time being, there isn't actually too much strategy required for this. Intruders enter the dungeon unaware of your presence, and some of them won't enter at all if you leave them alone. Additionally, the heart of your dungeon is in a fixed position pretty close to the entrance, so if you want to build a gauntlet of traps to protect it, you have a rather small area to work with. Now, maybe it'll be movable in the finished version, and I'm hoping there will be some more elaborate raids with some real risk to our operation, because for now, it's actually cheaper to just throw your monsters at them rather than paying for traps to be repaired. Aside from building, we can use the facilities at our base to summon new cultists, to expand our workforce, research and upgrade new monsters to bring on our expeditions, and assign workers to specific structures. As of now, the only purpose for assigning workers is to provide buffs to our monsters. And while these boosts are certainly helpful, I'd like to see some more uses for our cultists, like generating income or maybe feeding the monsters. Speaking of the monsters, each one requires a certain type of habitat and a certain amount of space. It seems we can overcrowd an enclosure in our monster zoo, and I don't actually know what this does. The monsters seem to stay put and just wander around the dungeon without a habitat, so I don't really see the point of this mechanic yet. It may be that you can't take them on missions unless their needs are met, but I'd like to see some more interaction with them. For example, maybe these monsters will get a little unruly and start eating cultists if we don't feed them or contain them properly. It would be nice to see some more base elements that suit our monsters' unique abilities too. Since many of the monsters are stealth-based, it would make sense to be able to construct hiding spots or murder holes for them to snatch approaching enemies from. But enough about the dungeon, because the real meat of this game is in the expeditions. These are miniature roguelite runs broken up into a series of encounters where we can hunt enemies and collect resources for our dungeon. If your cult leader dies or you otherwise fail an expedition, you will lose all of your loot and be sent home empty-handed. However, we can also extract at any time and keep everything we've collected, so be sure to balance the risk with the reward. I don't mind the extraction mechanic at all, but it seems to work even from the pause menu in the middle of an encounter, so if you pause the game right before you die and extract, you can still keep everything. Personally, I feel like it would make more sense to only be able to extract in between encounters, so there's still that element of risk in play. These encounters are mapped out for us ahead of time, so we can choose the path with the encounters we want. Each of these is a small level with its own map and one of a few different objectives, such as hunting a specific target, digging up and robbing graves, or surviving an enemy ambush. Although open combat is a possibility that it pays to prepare for, surviving an expedition requires stealth, timing, and clever planning above all else. Our cult leader is our primary character, and losing them means game over. We have the ability to see the vision cones of any enemy in our line of sight, and they have both an inner and an outer cone. Their inner vision cone allows them to spot us even when we're concealed by underbrush, so don't let them get too close. If we can manage to sneak up behind them, however, our leader can assassinate them almost silently. This is not a quick or clean process, though, and some victims may be guarded and struggle a bit more than others, so make sure there's time to clean up after yourself, or at least get to safety before someone notices. Each cult leader also has their own special ability they can use on missions. Lilith, for example, can reanimate a limited number of corpses to fight as expendable and explosive melee fighters. There's plenty of other ways to dispose of a body, though. Of course, we can harvest them for their flesh and eyeballs, which we can use to summon new monsters, or cast a hex on enemy units to see through their eyes. We can also feed these bodies to our pet monsters to recharge their own special abilities. Chambly, how about you come eat this guy? Huh? You want a snack? You deserve a snack. Choosing when and who to kill isn't just a matter of removing threats and disposing of bodies. This corpse economy is one of the most important strategy components in the game. We start out as a single, very vulnerable character and slowly build up a posse of monsters and followers by harvesting corpses, capturing summoning altars, and converting bystanders. Yes, in fact, we can make use of those pitiful civilians wandering each level. If a citizen sees you, they'll promptly panic and try to alert the nearest guard. But each unit also has a sanity score, which depletes similarly to health. If they watch you or one of your monsters tear an armed guard to shreds, they'll become terrified and our leader can enlighten them, converting them to a unit under our own control. These enlightened civilians are pitifully weak, but they travel with us between encounters and are largely undetectable to enemy units. Of course, if they get too close or attack someone, they'll still get swatted like a fly. That said, they make excellent spies and could even restrain an enemy unit from behind while our other units clear out their friends or close in for the kill. Like I said though, both our leader and our followers are pretty weak on their own. Our real power comes from our monsters, which we can bring to the field by capturing summoning altars. Keep in mind, though, that each monster summoned cannot be summoned again that expedition, and they don't follow you between zones, so use them sparingly. However, each monster has its own complement of terrifying abilities. The Deep One, for example, is an ambush killer that can snipe enemies from the shadows or quickly tear them apart in a frenzy. The Mygo is a flying monster that can stun enemies or even take over one's mind temporarily. And my personal favorite, the Shambler, is a deadly assassin that can turn invisible and even teleport onto enemies, killing entire squads in a single attack. There's already a pretty nice variety of monsters available, and it looks like they have more in the works, too. Going back to combat for a minute, if open conflict does happen, it's usually better to just run and hide. That said, there are some tactics that can get you out of a jam. One thing to note is that attacking from an enemy's flank increases your chance to hit and the damage dealt. Naturally, an attack from behind is even more deadly, but that also means that enemies get these same bonuses on us, so combat is a risky endeavor with some tactical depth to it, especially when you take items into account. Along with the gold and flesh we collect, we can also find equipment and consumables that our leader can make use of. We have 3 equipment slots which we can fill with little trinkets like knives, talismans, and cursed tomes that can improve our overall stats. These boosts are pretty minor for now, and the interface for using and swapping between items is super clunky. It's really easy to accidentally drop or use an item when swapping between them, and there's no tooltips or anything on what button does what exactly. The last thing I'll say about the expeditions is that it seemed like the levels were preset and didn't change at all between runs. If that's going to be the case in the finished version, they're going to need a ton of different levels to keep players interested. Otherwise, and this is what I'd recommend, they add non-story expeditions that randomize every time so that players can grind resources with a variety of different environments. I'd also like to know a bit more about the world this game is building. Lilith's personal story is interesting, but how do the events of the game tie into that story? What is the end goal of our efforts to summon a specific eldritch god to uncover a secret or ancient ruin? Are we just out to wipe out every rival cult and become the favorite faction of the Dark Gods? Then again, I love the concept and the style of this game, and though there were definitely some bugs and rough edges, including missing textures, broken objectives, and UI gore, I absolutely adore the mix of stealth gameplay and cultist management. All I really want to see is a bit more depth to the base building side of things, and a bit of direction as far as the narrative goes. But anyway, I'm just the voice in your head, so what do you think about Cthulhu Keeper? Do you like the mix of stealth gameplay, or do you wish combat was more active? Does this game seem like it could be a proper successor to Dungeon Keeper? What changes would you like to see in the finished game? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like or a comment helps me out a ton and appeases the great old ones. For now. If you want more, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep new content coming your way because I put out new stuff every week. Thanks so much for listening to me today. You'll be hearing from me again real soon. Neat.